Good afternoon. Hope you're having a great week. It's Friday the 13th. Friday, December 13th, 2:29 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, local time here in Brawley, California. Yes, I am still in Brawley. I'm at the Pilot Flying J truck stop. This red truck that's parked backwards, that's me. If you don't follow the channel, you don't know who I am. That's my truck right there. So I was in the middle of making a video and it got interrupted, and if you follow the channel you know that I don't edit videos. It's one take or nothing. But somebody came down here and tried to, one of these truck drivers parked over here, saw me walking around, and he came down here and tried to sell me some tires. That's really weird. But anyway, what's going on with me? Well, I've got two pieces of good news and one piece of bad news. Let's go over those real quick, and then we'll ramble about something. We'll figure out something to ramble about. Maybe we'll ramble about the boat life. God, I hate people with backup alarms. It seems like everybody that has a backup alarm, it takes them like an hour to back up. You're just sitting here for an hour, just beep, 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 beep. So let's go through the good news and bad news real quick. Let's do the good news first. Actually, let's do the bad news first. The bad news, very simply, is that I haven't been able to find a load. There have been 3 loads that I've tried to get, or I wanted to get, and it didn't end up happening. One of them was a Harbor Freight load, picking up in Moreno Valley, going to Sweetwater, Texas. That was paying like $4 a mile. It was a pretty good load. But I didn't think I could make the pickup and delivery appointments. I didn't think I could make the pickup appointment, but not the delivery. So I sat there for about 10 minutes trip planning to see if it was possible to make the delivery, and it wasn't. But I was going to call them and see if the delivery could be pushed back to, later in the day. And I refreshed the load board, and the load was already gone by the time I did my trip planning. The second load was another Harbor Freight load, Moreno Valley to Bartlesville, Oklahoma, which is just north of Tulsa, up in the northeast corner of Oklahoma. That load had a bunch of extra stuff with it, and it was only paying $3 a mile, which is pretty cheap for this area. I was willing to take the low pay of $3 a mile, but when they told me about all the extra stuff with the load that they were not willing to compensate me for, I was not willing to take it. So I asked them to add more money to the load for all the extra crap, and they refused. So I did not take that load. So what was the extra crap with the load? Well, one was that it had 4 days of layover. It had a very firm delivery date, and so you could not deliver early, and it had 4 extra days on the load. 4, possibly 5 extra days on the load. Colton, California to Bellingham, Washington. Sorry, I just got a load alert. I'm not going up to Washington. Why did I get a load alert on Washington? It must be a multi-stop load, because I do have a load alert to alert me of loads that are over $8,000 coming out of this area. Bellingham, Washington's not very far away, so that thing's either paying insanely high rate per mile to be over $8,000. It's got to be paying like $7+ a mile, or it's a multi-stop load that's really high mileage. Anyway, so 4 days possibly 5 days of layover on the load that they weren't paying for, and you had to shuttle trailers around at the delivery location. The Harbor Freight Store had a 53-foot van parked in their dock that they used as storage. So you had to move that van out of the dock so that you could unload, and then you had to put it back in the dock when you were done. For people who are not truck drivers, that's a lot of work. That's 1 to 2 hours of manual labor. Hooking up and unhooking lines, raising and lowering landing gears, and then pulling the trailer out of the spot and then parking it in another spot. So I have to drop my trailer, hook up to the other trailer, drop that trailer, hook back up to my trailer, drop my trailer, park my trailer, then move my trailer, then drop my trailer, then hook back up to the other trailer, park the other trailer, drop it, and then go hook back up to my trailer. That's a lot of work. Just doing a normal drop and hook, which is about half that work, is about an hour of work, and I get really sweaty doing that. It's manual labor. And they weren't willing to pay a penny for that. That's the equivalent of like a driver unload, to have me do that much manual labor shuttling trailers around at the receiver. And they weren't willing to compensate me at all for that. The load was paying like $4,200 to go 1,400 something loaded miles. I can't remember exactly. That's the full rate. I get approximately 70% of that. And then the last load, well, anyway, I told them that the one thing that really ticked me off about that was they lied to me. They told me that it wasn't possible to increase the rate of the load or to move money over into a pay bucket that I got a higher percentage of because it was a contract load, which is a complete lie. Because I've had both of those things done several times while I've been at Landstar with contract freight. So I don't like it when people lie to me. But anyway, I didn't get into an argument or a debate or call her a liar or anything like that. I just said, all right, I'll think about it. I'm going to see what else is out there, and I might give you a call back. And that's how the call ended. And I never gave him a call back. The load sat on the load board for another day, and then it disappeared. So I'm guessing somebody booked the load. And then the last load is a load that I was thinking about picking up today, just about an hour or two ago. It was just one single small metal box of 1.4S explosives. It was hazmat that did not require placarding, and hazmat that doesn't require placarding does not require a hazmat license, a hazmat endorsement. You don't have to be hazmat certified, which I thought everyone at Landstar had a hazmat certification because that was a requirement to lease on to Landstar whenever I leased on. But apparently there's a lot of people at Landstar that don't have hazmat certifications. I think maybe they're grandfathered in or something like that. I'm not sure. But it's paying really well. It's like $5.47 a mile. It's only about 1,000 loaded miles, 1,100 loaded miles, and it's paying like $5,500 on the full rate, of which I get approximately 70%. So it's a good paying load. I would like to take it, but I can't make the delivery, not the delivery. I can make the delivery appointment. It has plenty of time to deliver. I just can't make the pickup appointment. They posted the load like an hour before it picked up. It had a pickup appointment of like 3 p.m. and I couldn't make it. It was over 200 miles away, and trucks can drive a maximum of 55 miles per hour in California. So that's a 4 to 5 hour drive depending on traffic. And the load was posted at like 1 p.m. So I probably wouldn't have been able to make it there by 5 p.m. and they most likely closed at 5. So I didn't even call to try to book that load. I did, see if I could make it down there before 5 p.m. and I couldn't. But yeah, so that's the bad news, is I haven't been able to find a load. And it looks like I'm going to be setting through the weekend because brokers work bankers hours. So there's hardly any loads posted on the weekends. What is the good news? One piece of good news, for people who follow the channel, you know that I've ruined the motion stabilizers on 2 phones recording driving footage. So the phone I'm recording from right now, the motion stabilizer is broken. If I try to record driving footage with this phone, it shakes so bad, you'll probably get motion sickness. You can't see anything. So I started using another phone that I bought it to just use for GPS, but the camera on that thing is horrible. I've recorded tons of driving footage on that phone, but the camera quality is so bad that you can't see anything. So I haven't uploaded it. Like, I'll record 3 or 4 hours while I'm driving at night, and it's just a black screen because the camera is so bad it can't pick up any image at night. And the motion stabilizer has started to go out on that phone as well. But the good news is that I found that I have another phone in the truck, and I'm going to try recording driving footage with that one. That one has a much better camera. It has a camera that's pretty much as good as the camera on this phone, and the motion stabilizer should be fully functional on that phone. It's an old OnePlus One phone, the first generation OnePlus phone. And that was a really popular phone because it was basically the same specifications as the latest and greatest iPhone and Samsung, but it was half the price. But it was really hard to get that phone. It was invite only. There was like a lottery system and stuff like that. One of my coworkers had like been picked through the lottery system or whatever, and then the people who had purchased phones had a certain number of invites that they could give out to other people. So he gave me an invite, and that's how I got it. So we might have some driving videos in the future that are actually decent quality once I get driving again, whenever that may be. All right, now the last bit of good news, which you probably have guessed by now. I mean, if there was 2 good and 1 bad, and I did the bad first, and there was something I was definitely going to talk about, then you know what it is. The bank issue. The bank didn't contact me, and I cannot talk with people at the bank that actually know what's going on without going to a branch. And even then, I probably won't be able to talk to somebody who knows what's going on. My bank outsources their customer service, which pretty much every company does these days. That's what happens whenever you get rid of your tariffs, or you reduce your tariffs significantly, and you tell everybody, hey, we're going to reduce these tariffs and it's going to be awesome because you're going to be able to buy cheap shit at Walmart. And people are so dumb that they are like, yeah, awesome, let's do it. They don't think through the repercussions of that. What happens whenever you reduce those tariffs? Well, it makes the operational costs so low in other countries that it causes an exodus of jobs from this country. it causes an exodus of manufacturing from this country. So that's the reason almost all the customer service jobs are outsourced to places like India. If we had tariffs on India that were reasonable, then it wouldn't be so cheap to have your call center in India. Those jobs would come back here to the United States. Our manufacturing jobs, you know, you used to be able to, and this wasn't, I don't think this was too long ago. This was back when I was a teenager, back in the 90s. I had family members that worked, I can't remember what the name of the factory was. It was in Fort Smith, Arkansas. One of my family members, he had a really solid, like, middle class income. He made around $30,000 or $40,000 a year, which back in the 90s was a respectable amount of money for a low cost of living area like Oklahoma and Arkansas. He supported his whole family on that job. And what did he do? He screwed in light bulbs to refrigerators. Assembly line work. I also had friends and relatives that worked in Oklahoma City at, there was some kind of car manufacturing plant in Oklahoma City. I can't remember what it was. It was one of the best jobs in Oklahoma City for, like, unskilled labor. And they shut that plant down. So we lost tons and tons of unskilled labor, middle class jobs. And we also empowered our adversaries. China is an adversary. We moved a lot of our businesses over to China. Anyway, this is turning into a different video. Why were we even talking about that? We were talking about my bank outsourcing their call center. Almost everybody does that these days. And that's because of our federal government. And I could rant and rave about that for hours, but let's not do that. Let's rein this back in. So I'm not going to give exact details, because one of the ways my bank does verification is with exact details of transaction history on the account. So someone transferred money out of my account into their account. It almost zeroed out my account balance. It wasn't a few $100s. It also wasn't tens of thousands of dollars. It was somewhere in between there. I noticed that transaction and I contacted my bank, and they did an investigation, and within a couple of days the money was back into my account. They haven't really told me what they found in that investigation. All I know is that the money is back in my account, and it seems to be resolved now. So that's good news. Now we get to the rambling part, which is my favorite part, because I don't have to try to remember what I was talking about whenever I just get to rambling about whatever. I can go in any direction I want. We'll end up down some rabbit hole talking about UFOs or something, which that is a big topic right now. That plane has just been flying really low all over this place. It looks like a crop duster plane, but it doesn't have tanks on it that I saw. So maybe it's somebody that's like getting trained on how to crop dust. I don't know. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of drones all over the country. I haven't noticed any around here, but there's supposedly these drones that are just loitering all over the country, mainly around military bases, and they seem to be just collecting information. They seem to be surveilling military bases. And these are very large drones that require special licensing, drones that are basically treated like aircraft, like airplanes. You have to have like a pilot's license and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that to operate drones of that size. And they're also extremely expensive. These are drones that are capable of flight times of like hours. Those are incredibly expensive drones. And there's been large numbers of them seen surveilling, just loitering in the air around military bases around the country. New Jersey is the focal point of it, but there's been reports I've heard of in California and tons of other states, Texas, of these massive drones, not tiny little drones that you know, your recreational person buys at Walmart. No, massive drones that are like the size of a car, that are tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's some interesting news that's going on right now. And our government doesn't seem to know what in the hell is going on with it. Our government just looks really incompetent right now. And our government also looked really incompetent back when we had those Chinese spy balloons flying across the country. But I don't have a whole lot of information on that. It's interesting. If you're interested in it, go check it out. Watch some videos on it. Let's talk about the boat life. What is the boat life? Well, I had a dream of being a truck driver, and I thought about it, I researched, I planned, and over the course of about 5 years, I figured out how to do it, and I did it. It was about 5 years of researching and planning and thinking before I ended up doing it. And that's what I'm doing right now. Now I have a new dream. My new dream is to buy a boat. Specifically, what I'm thinking of right now is a 34-foot sailboat that I can hopefully get for under $50,000. And I plan on living on it full time off the coast of Florida. Mainly down in the Florida Keys, occasionally take it over to the Bahamas. That's the dream. And that just started a couple months ago because of some YouTube videos that popped up in my YouTube videos, you know, suggestions. And it caused me to start watching a whole bunch of videos on that topic. And it sounds amazing, and it's an extremely low cost of living. As long as you get a really cheap boat, something that's really cheap to maintain, then the cost of living is quite low, or it could potentially be quite low. So I wouldn't have to make a lot of money to support myself. And there is where the problem comes in. How in the world do I support myself? And I'm still trying to figure that out. It's not even worth pursuing if I can't figure out a way to make money. And I've been looking into lots of different possibilities. I looked into fishing, and I looked at all of the licensing and permits required to do fishing around the coast of Florida. And the licensing and permits are not that expensive. There's quite a few licenses and permits that you have to get. So you have to have a Florida fishing license, and to fish for a lot of species, you have to have a federal fishing license on top of your Florida fishing license. These things are not very expensive. Like the highly migratory species license that allows you to catch bluefin tuna, yellowfin, and a couple of other migratory tuna. It's like $26 a year. But to be able to sell fish, you have to have a commercial fishing license. And from what I looked at on that, those are also not very expensive. So the licensing is not a problem. What's the problem? Well, you can only sell fish to people who have a wholesale commercial fishing license. So the person who's selling the fish has to have a commercial license, and the person that's buying the fish has to have a commercial license. So you can't just have a commercial fishing license and sell fish off the back of your boat to just random people. Now, maybe if you have a wholesale fishing license on top of your regular fishing, commercial fishing license, maybe if you have both of those commercial licenses, you might be able to sell directly to the public. I did not look into that possibility. But what I looked at on wholesalers is basically they don't like buying from directly from small fishermen like that. There was somebody that I found online that tried to do exactly what I was thinking about doing, and he said that whenever he went to wholesalers to ask them about buying his fish, they laughed at him. And every wholesaler that he went to told him that he can't do that. I mean, legally he can, but none of the wholesalers will buy from him. They all said that they only buy processed frozen fish. They don't buy like fresh fish straight off of a boat. So he would have to process the fish, freeze the fish, and then even then they probably wouldn't deal with them because it's low quantity. They only deal with large quantities. The other problem I ran into with fishing is that most of the fish that you can catch around Florida, you can't make any money selling them. The only way you can make money is massive quantity because they sell for next to nothing. You're talking about like getting 50 cents a pound if you're lucky on fish. The fish that actually sell for a decent amount of money are really rare. They're so rare that you can't make a living off of them because they're so hard to catch. Like bluefin tuna. Japanese bluefin tuna is a really rare species of tuna that sells for crazy amounts of money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly over $1 million for a single fish, which tuna can get up to like 1,500 pounds. Bluefin tuna can get up to like 1,500 pounds. So one single large Japanese bluefin, which that's around Japan, that's not something you can fish for off the coast of Florida. Those are the ones that everybody hears about that are worth crazy amounts of money. But they are super rare. And they're over off the coast of Japan. They're not around the coast of Florida. The Atlantic bluefin is not worth anywhere close to that. But they are also extremely rare. So the bluefin tuna that you can catch off the coast of Florida, you can get like maybe $10 to $20 a pound. Let's say you catch a 500 pound one. That's $5,000 to $10,000. for a single fish. That's a lot of money. But you could fish for an entire year and never catch a single one. The most common type of tuna around the coast of Florida is blackfin. And take everything I'm saying on this subject with a grain of salt, because I've never done it. This is just off of the research that I've done. So, blackfin tuna is worthless. You can't sell it for anything. People use blackfin tuna for bait. And if you go fishing for tuna around the coast of Florida, then that's pretty much what you're going to catch is blackfin tuna. So fishing is definitely an option for personal use, to just eat my own fish. You know, I could severely reduce my food costs by just doing my own fishing. But to make money, it's not feasible. I haven't yet found a type of fish that I could catch which I could make a reasonable amount of money from, where it would actually be worth it. Something else that I looked into was scuba diving. I've never been scuba diving, but if I'm going to live on a boat, I'm going to have scuba gear. I'm going to have my own, air compressor to fill my own tanks, and I'm going to learn how to scuba dive. So one of the things I started looking at was, what can I do to make money scuba diving? And the most realistic thing that I found was cleaning boat holes. And generally, what people charge to wipe off a boat hole, to basically get a sponge and wipe off the entire hull of a boat, not the entire hull, the part of the hull that's underwater, is about $3 to $4 a foot. So let's say the average boat length is 30 feet. It's about $90 for a single boat. Let's just round it up to 100. Let's say $100 per boat. Well, doing that is going to be similar to like starting up your own lawn mowing business. You're going to have to create a customer base. And at the very beginning, you're probably only going to have very infrequent customers. You might only be doing like 2 hole cleanings per week. So you're talking about like $200 a week. How long does it take to clean the hull of a boat? A 40-foot boat or a 30-foot boat? I have no idea. But I would guess that it would take probably 2 or 3 hours or longer. The hull of the boat is pretty big. It's a lot of square footage that you have to wipe down. And it's probably not as simple as just wiping. You probably have to scrub it down. You have to go over the same spot several times to get everything off of it. So it could be a very time-consuming process that could potentially take 4 or 5 hours for a single boat. So I might be lucky if I could make $200 a day. If I had a long list of clients, then maybe I could do 2 boats a day, making $200 a day, 5 days a week, $1,000 a week. And what is that? That is a low-paying full-time job. You're talking about like 8 to 10 hour days to make $200 a day. That's somewhere in the ballpark of like $20 an hour. You know who makes $20 an hour? pretty much any entry-level job these days. You go work at McDonald's and make $20 an hour. So that does not seem very good. So yeah, I still haven't figured out a way to make money. Another thing that I've looked into is commercial uses for the boat. If you want to do any type of commercial endeavor with a boat, you have to have a U.S. Coast Guard license, a captain's license. In order to get a U.S. Coast Guard captain's license, I think the absolute minimum for the lowest level license requires 360 documented sea days. What in the world does that even mean? Well, I'm not 100% sure. It's something I've been researching, and it's a very convoluted mess. It is not the code, the regulations and the coding, the wording of it is very ambiguous, which basically almost all of our laws and regulations are very ambiguous, which I do not like, because it leaves it up to the interpretation of the enforcers of those regulations or laws to do whatever the hell they want whenever you put in ambiguous things like that. So it's very complicated to explain. So let me explain it with one scenario. Let's say that I get a yacht, a 34-foot sailing yacht. If I take that out, I have to work a minimum of either 4 or 8 hours a day, depending on how the U.S. Coast Guard interprets the regulations, because there is a clause in the regulations that normally you have to work an 8-hour day for it to count as a sea day. And you have to do very specific jobs like captaining the boat, or you have to be in engineering or something like that. Well, if I'm solo sailing the boat, then I'm captaining the boat. So it has to be a minimum of 8 hours in a work day. Or if your boat is under 100 gross rated tons, which my boat would be, then you might only have to do 4 hours a day of work for it to count as a sea day, depending on how the Coast Guard feels at the time that they process your application. Another stipulation on a sea day is that there are two types of boats. There are boats that are basically not underway, and then there are boats that are underway. So there are certain types of boats that you can get credit for sea days even if they're at the dock all the time. You can even get credit for sea days on a mobile drilling platform that is stationary most of the time. But if you are getting sea days on something that is primarily stationary, then you get reduced sea days. So like if you're an engineer on a boat that's sitting at the dock, then you get half credit. So if you do 100 sea days, you get credit for 50 of those sea days if it's on a vessel that's not underway very often. To count as being underway, you have to have an average of 4 hours per day throughout the month underway. your daily average underway has to be 4 hours per day. Now, this is where we run into a lot of confusion because of how ambiguous and how poorly worded the regulations are. The way I interpret the regulations is that the boat has to be underway for an average of 4 hours or more per day throughout the month for you to be able to accumulate sea days on that vessel. The way most people interpret that is that you only get credit for days in which the boat was underway for a minimum of 4 hours that day. But that's not what the regulations say. But that's how most people interpret it. Even like maritime licensing schools and stuff like that, that's the way they interpret that. But that's not what the actual regulations state. That's not even what the supporting documentation that explains the regulations states. It says the daily average has to be over 4 hours for you to get sea day credit on the vessel. So that means that you could be on a vessel that sails for 8 straight days in a month and then is anchored for the rest of the month. And every day of that month that you're working on the vessel, as long as you're working for the minimum 4 or 8 hours per day, every single day of that month is going to count as a sea day for you. So, because I couldn't find any clarification online, I emailed the United States Coast Guard to ask for clarification. And the United States Coast Guard has outsourced their customer service. I was not able to reach someone with the U.S. Coast Guard. I reached some third-party outsource company, and they told me they couldn't answer my question. That's basically all they said. Like, I sent an email to the United States Coast Guard, and some third-party company responded to me and told me that they didn't know the answer to my question. The licensing entity that controls the licensing was not able to tell me the requirements to get the license. That is the sad state that we're in with outsourcing. So, what I could do is just float around on the boat for at least 4 hours a day, every day, and it would only take me 1 year to get the minimum 360 days required to get the lowest level captain's license, which is known as a 6-pack. Basically, it allows you to do tours, charters with your boat. It allows you to have up to 6 customers, not total people, 6 customers. So you could have 2 or 3 deckhands on the boat and then 6 customers. You can have 6 patrons, 6 customers on your boat with the lowest level Coast Guard license, captain's license, the 6-pack. And you can do charters or tours or whatever. You know, take people out scuba diving, take them out to just look at the scenery, take them out fishing, whatever. Am I going to do any of that stuff? Absolutely not. The boat that I plan on getting is not going to be big enough to do any kind of charters. And it's not going to be designed to do that kind of stuff. Am I going to pursue a captain's license? Yeah, I'm going to log my sea days because one of the things that I've been thinking about is hauling freight. Yes, it's a very small boat and I can't fit very much on it. It's not a freight hauler. But like the load I was talking about earlier, a 15-pound box that they were going to pay me $5,500 to take 1,000 miles. What if you could get those kind of deliveries with a boat? You know, somebody is willing to pay me $5,000 or $10,000, $20,000 or something to haul a dozen cardboard boxes of stuff over to some island out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Absolutely, that's what I would love to do. But the problem with that is you can't do that with the lowest level license. In order to do that, you have to have the highest level. Well, I won't say the highest level, because there are the highest level captain's license with the U.S. Coast Guard is broken into different weight classes. So I would only need like the lowest weight class license. But it's like a master captain's license or something like that. It is a really, really hard license to get. I think that the sea days required to get that license is 1,440. So what is that? Is that 4 years of documented sea days? And there's a whole bunch of other requirements on top of that. And then on top of that, you need an oceans endorsement to be able to do any kind of international freight hauling, to go into international waters hauling freight commercially. So I don't think I'm ever going to get that license, but I'm going to go ahead and document my sea days just in case I ever want to pursue that license years in the future. And that is also, again, saying if I ever decide to actually do this whole boat life. I followed a few people on YouTube that are basically wanting to do exactly what I'm wanting to do. There's one guy that I found that's, I forget what his channel name is, Ocean Life Off Grid or something like that. Basically, he did exactly what I want to do, except he went into it without a plan on how to make money. So he liquidated all of his assets, and he had like somewhere in the ballpark of $50,000 after selling his house and his car and everything. After liquidating everything, he had like 50 grand. And then he spent like 30 grand on a boat. And by the time he actually got onto the water, I think he had about $10,000 left. That's all the money he had in the world, was like $10,000. And he had no way of making any money. What he thought he was going to do was create a YouTube channel, and he was going to make money off of YouTube. That's how he was going to support himself, was through YouTube. He didn't even start the YouTube channel until after he had been out on the boat for like 3 or 4 months. Because he did not want to document on YouTube his struggle of learning the boat, because he didn't know how to sail or anything whenever he did this. So he was embarrassed to record himself doing stuff and doing it wrong because he didn't know what he was doing. And then he started documenting his journey. basically doing the exact type of video logs that I do, documenting my trucking journey, except he was doing a little bit of editing. It wasn't just completely podcast style, just one shot improvisation like I do. He was doing a little bit of editing, but it was mainly just him talking to the camera. It wasn't him actually doing anything. And on YouTube, that's what people like to see. They like to actually see what you're talking about while you're talking about it. A lot of people on YouTube do not like podcast style videos where you're just talking about stuff. They want to actually see stuff happening. So he didn't get a lot of views. Oh, the person next to me is leaving. He ended up getting a fair number of subscribers. I can't remember. I want to say it was like 5,000, maybe even 10,000 subscribers. And he only uploaded like 10 videos. Person next to me just pulled out, so we'll just have to keep an eye out for whoever pulls in there. And his videos started picking up quite a bit of traction. He was getting 2,000 to 15,000 views on pretty much all of his videos. I can't remember the exact view counts, but it was solid. Like, it was a decent amount of views, especially for only having like 10 videos. And I enjoyed his videos. I enjoyed following his journey. I wish he would put out more videos. I really like people who upload videos like me, where they're just like documenting their life and they're doing something interesting. But what ended up happening with him is he ran out of money within like 6 months, and he had to park the boat and get a job on land. And I sent him a message and I was like, man, I love your videos. You have the exact same dream that I do. I want to do exactly what you did. The only problem that I'm having is how in the world I can support myself. I still haven't figured out a way to make money living on the boat. And this was like his very first video that I commented on, the very first video I watched. And he was talking in that very first video about how he was still trying to figure out a way to support himself. And, I said in my comment, I was like, I hope you figure out, I'm not going to walk all the way down there. Somebody's standing down there. I think they're smoking at the end of their trailer. And I don't want this video to get interrupted like the last one. When people see me walking around recording, they tend to want to come over and talk to me. There's this idea that people have that whenever you walk around with a camera, people get mad and they don't want to be recorded. I've had the exact opposite with me. Whenever I walk around recording, everybody wants to come over and get in the camera. Everybody wants to come over and talk to me. But I commented on there and I told him, like, I love your videos. I wish you the best of luck. And I have the same dream. And I hope you figure out how to make money, because that's the only thing I haven't figured out yet, is how I'm going to make money doing it. I don't need much, but I haven't figured out a way to support myself on the boat life. So I hope you get it figured out. And he replied back and he said, yeah, I never figured it out. I ended up parking the boat and getting a job, and I've been working 70 hours a week, and I'm hoping to get back out on the water again soon. And I replied back to him and I told him, because later in his videos he admits that he thought that he was going to be able to make money through YouTube. So he didn't go into it with no plan on how to support himself. He went into it with the plan of supporting himself through YouTube. He admitted that in later videos. and he didn't make enough money off YouTube to support himself. So he ended up getting a real job. And I told him, I replied back to him, and I said, you know, I really like your videos, and I think that you could actually make it off of YouTube. I wouldn't give up on it if I was you. I would stay at it. So hopefully he comes back and gives it another try, because I would like to follow his journey. And hell, maybe in 5 years, whenever I make it down there, if I make it down there, he'll still be down there, and I can meet up with him and be like, I've been following your journey. I finally did it myself, you know, I made it here too. But I think that's a problem a lot of people have with social media. Especially young people. There's a lot of young people that have this idea that they're going to become a social media influencer and make a living uploading videos on YouTube once they get out of high school. My last job, they did daily tours, and they would come by my department. I worked in the social media department. And whenever they would get over to our department, man, those kids would get so excited. Oh, you guys work in social media? That's what I want to do. Yeah, what I did in social media is not what they want to do in social media. I don't want to get into too many details about my personal life. But I think a lot of people have a misconception about how much you can make on social media. People think that if you have like 15, 20,000 subscribers, you're getting like 5,000 people watching your channel, like 5,000 people watching every video, that you're making like tens of thousands of dollars a month. That's not the case. I have never had a monetized channel, but I have researched the topic. YouTube pays... All right, YouTube pay for videos is all over the place. It depends on a ton of different factors. There are people, the basic way that people talk about how much money they make on YouTube is how much they make per 1,000 views. So there are people that make like 50 cents per 1,000 views, and there are people that make like $20 per 1,000 views. So you could have somebody that has a video that gets 100,000 views. So that's 100 times their 1,000, whatever they're getting paid per 1,000 views. So somebody that's making 50 cents per 1,000 views, that'd be 100 times 50 cents. Is that $50? Let me just run that math in my head real quick. Yeah, that'd be $5 per 10,000 views. So that'd be $50. So you might have one person that's getting $50 for 100,000 views, and then another person's getting $20 per 100,000 or per 1,000. So what does that come out to? That's 20 times 100. It's $2,000, right? So that's the type of disparity that you have on YouTube with pay. And it's not consistent. So you could, one day, you could get paid $20 per 1,000 views. Or let's just go and say, let's say, you know, one video that gets 100,000 views, you might get $2,000 for it. Another video that gets 100,000 views, you might get $50 for it. It's extremely inconsistent. And you need to have very large numbers of views to make a decent amount of money. From what I've found in my research, unless you're doing gaming, which gaming is the absolute bottom of the revenue on YouTube. If you're doing anything other than gaming, then you should expect to make about $5 or more per view, or per 1,000 views. So how much would you need to make a decent living? Well, I need to make a minimum of about $30,000 a year to support myself with the boat life. So what is that? That's about a little over $2,000 a month. So let's just ballpark it at $2,000 a month. So at $2,000 a month, at $5 per 1,000 views, how many views per month would you have to get to support yourself? Oh my goodness, math in my head. Let's try to do it. I hope you're better. If you're better than me at math in your head, then you've probably already figured it out, because I'm sure it's simple. So $5, and we need to make 2,000. So that would be 400,000 views per month. Is that right? I think that's right. I think you would need to get 400,000 views per month to be able to support yourself in the boat life. That's if you keep your expenses super cheap. Like, you have to do all of the maintenance on the boat yourself. Like, you have to do everything cheap. You can't afford to pay anyone to work on your boat. And you're going to be living on beans and rice and whatever fish you can catch. So, I mean, you're going to be living like you're not going to have any money. So 400,000 views per month, you would barely be able to scrape by in the boat life. That doesn't sound like a lot, because most of the YouTube videos that you see in your suggested feed, they all have like 5, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 views. But that is not normal. Most of the people on YouTube are getting no views at all on their videos. Maybe they're getting 1 or 2 views. Maybe they're getting 10 views. It's really hard to start building up viewership on YouTube. And then it's really hard to surpass, thresholds and stuff like that on YouTube. So to get up to the point where you can support yourself off of YouTube, it's not easy. So I definitely would not go down trying to live the boat life, not even having a YouTube channel, and just expecting that I'm going to be able to magically create a YouTube channel and make enough money to support myself off of it. I really like, the guy's channel, and I support everything that he's doing, and I hope it works out for him. But I thought that was I thought that was a really bad decision to just dump all of your money into something, quit your job, and then have no way of supporting yourself. And it ended up failing, but he had a backup plan. He went and parked the boat and got a job. So what would my backup plan be? Well, I hope my primary plan is good enough that I don't have to rely on a backup plan. But what would my backup plan be? I have experience, knowledge, certifications in the information technology field. What I did, my job before I got into trucking was, I don't think I've ever talked about this on the channel, and we are over an hour into the video. So by this point, the only people listening to the video are my long-term subscribers. So the people who just got this suggestion and they listened to the video and then took off and they're somewhere else by now. So what did I do before? What was my old job? I was a social media and community manager for Dell Technologies. What in the world does that mean? What that means is that I have a background in servers. Mainly servers is what I specialized in, but I also have a background in networking and storage. I'm decent at networking, not very good at storage. So for people who are not in the enterprise administration field, you probably have no idea what I mean by servers, storage, and networking. You're probably thinking about hard drives and network cards and stuff like that. No, when I say servers, storage, and networking, I'm talking about data center equipment. I'm talking about the servers that you see in racks at data centers. I'm talking about like Cisco networking equipment, not consumer equipment, enterprise equipment, data center equipment. And I'm talking about storage appliances, large storage infrastructure. Those are the types of things that I worked on. So I mainly represented Dell Technologies on social platforms. I helped to manage and moderate forums and social media accounts like Twitter. And we also did marketing. I didn't do any sales, so I did public relations, marketing, and technical support is what I did for Dell Technologies. So, as a backup plan, I could almost guarantee you that I could get a full-time work-from-home job with Dell Technologies again. Do I want to ever work for that company again? No. There are a lot of reasons why I left and I decided to become a truck driver. I don't ever want to go back there again. But that's the reason it's a backup plan. It's not something you want to do, it's something you have to do. But right now I'm still in the really early stages of the boat life. With trucking, it took me about 5 years, and we're at like 2 or 3 months with the boat life. And transitioning to the boat life might be an even bigger jump than transitioning into trucking. I don't know. You know, to transition into trucking, I had to pay like $6,000 to go to CDL school. And I had to spend like $40,000 buying a truck. And I had to go through a month of on-the-job training. There was a lot of things that I had to overcome to become an owner-operator truck driver and start up my own business and everything. And that's something that I've been thinking about, is if I move over to the boat life, can I keep using my same business that I have right now? That's something I just started researching And I'm sure that a lot of owner-operators are probably my longtime subscribers. I don't really have a great understanding of LLCs. I have a sole proprietorship, just a pass-through entity with my LLC, and I think it's classified as transportation. And I have it registered in Oklahoma. So if I move to Florida and I want to keep my same business, I'm curious as to what exactly I would have to do. Like, let's say in Florida, I want to start up my own business where I'm going to be doing marine related stuff. It's not going to be related to transportation anymore. You know, I'm cleaning people's hulls of their boats. I'm doing just little odd jobs like that are marine related. So I'm guessing I'm going to have to transfer my business. I'm going to have to register a new business in Florida and use some kind of transfer to move my business from Oklahoma to Florida, because I don't want my business to remain based out of Oklahoma, because I don't want to deal with any kind of Oklahoma tax crap. I want my business registered in Florida whenever I move there. So I think from what I've read, I would have to create a new business in Florida and transfer my existing business to that new business in Florida. And in that process, I could probably choose the type of business, my primary type of business, because you can do multiple things under an LLC, but I'm pretty sure that you have a designation for whatever your primary industry is, or your primary type of business. And mine's transportation right now. It would not be transportation at that point. So I think that's what I have to do on a state level. And then what would I have to do on a federal level? Would I just have to submit some document with the IRS and notify them that of my change of business to Florida, and my type of business has changed over from transportation to, I don't know what classification I'd fall under then. Marketing, I don't know what. Marine, I don't even know what the full list of things are that you could select. So that's the type of stuff that I'm researching on this whole boat life endeavor. I'm very meticulous, I'm very thorough, and that's the reason it typically takes me months and years to research and plan big decisions like this. Because I've been researching everything required with the boats, you know, all the boat registration and stuff like that, all the permitting and licensing required. To give you an example, one of the things I was researching last night was radios. I want to have a ham radio. Why do I want to have a ham radio on the boat? Well, that truck driver's pissed off at that four-wheeler. He's laying on the horn. I don't know if you could hear it on the mic. But for those that don't know, in order to operate certain frequencies, which a ham radio has, you have to be licensed to do that. You have to have a license. There's like 3 different levels of ham radio licenses, and each level gives you access to different frequencies. So why would I want a ham radio? What are the 3 main types of radios? Well, here in trucking, we use CB radios, citizens band radios. They're only good for a range of up to about 5 miles, if you're lucky. That doesn't do very well out in the open ocean, because you're most likely going to be further away than 5 miles from anything. So you need something that gets out further than 5 miles. So what do they use on boats? They use VHF, very high frequency. Do you need a license to use VHF radios? Kind of, yes and no. So if you're just using the VHF radio within the United States and your boat does not require a VHF radio, then you don't need a license. So if you're on a boat that requires a VHF radio, which I think boats over 65 feet require a VHF radio. I also think all commercial vessels require a VHF radio. I don't know what all vessels are required to have one, but if your vessel requires one, then you have to have a license. So if you're in a normal recreational yacht like what I would have, and you're only traveling domestically or in international waters, you do not need a license. But if you travel to another country with a VHF radio in your boat, whether you use the radio or not, you have to have a license for the radio. And I want to go to the Bahamas. The Bahamas is another country. So in order for me to have a VHF radio and go to the Bahamas, I have to have a ship station license. Ship station license is good for 10 years. I think it's completely free. You just basically have to register with the federal government. It's just a form you have to fill out to get a ship station license. I don't think it costs anything. You also have to have an operator's license to use a VHF radio that requires a ship station license. The operator's license, I believe, is also free, and it's a lifetime license. So in order for me to have a ham radio on the boat, I would want to get at least the first 2 levels of ham radio license. I think that opens up pretty much all the frequencies. The highest level of ham radio license, I think it doesn't really provide any benefit to me. I think it's mainly if you want to be an examiner. If you want to do ham radio licensing as a job, then you get that highest level license. So I would just get the second level license so I'd have access to all the frequencies. Then I would have to get a ship station license for the boat. And then I would have to get an operator's license for myself. And then to use a ham radio on a boat, the antenna is not going to be a big deal, but it has to be grounded. You have to have a ground plate on the boat. And from what I've been seeing on most of these small yachts, they do not have grounding plates. So I might have to have a grounding plate installed, which you should have a grounding plate for more than just ham radios from everything I've been reading. Grounding plate's just good to have on a boat so that you can have all of your electrical and metal and everything grounded. Otherwise, it'll build up static electricity over time, and it'll cause electrical issues. But these are just the types of things I've been researching. I've been researching about fishing, about licensing, about radios, just tons and tons of stuff. Now, how bad do I want to live the boat life? Do I want to live the boat life bad enough that I am willing to go back and work my old job and go back to being a 40-hour-a-week employee and just do work from home inside the boat? Do I want the boat life bad enough to do that? I don't know about that. I'm hoping I can find something that I can do as an independent contractor to where I do not have to be an employee ever again in my life. I never want to be an employee again. And that's pretty much anyone that I've ever talked to that's ever been, an independent contractor, they never want to be an employee again. Your earning potential is so much higher, and you have so much more control over everything. It's just really, really hard to go back to being an employee once you've gotten out of that. But this video is getting really long. If you're still listening to it right now, then you're probably driving down the road, just letting it play while you drive. And that's what I do when I'm driving down the road, is I have one of those FM transmitters that you plug into a cigarette lighter or a DC charge plug. And I don't actually use the FM transmitter because it's always really squeaky and staticky. What I did is I went out and I bought one of those, what's it called? It's just one of those cables, one of those plugs that goes into your alt. Like almost all radios have them, and the FM transmitter that I have has an outlet. So my FM transmitter is wired to my radio, and I just use Bluetooth to connect my phone to the FM transmitter, and then I'll just load up YouTube videos like Joe Rogan podcasts and stuff like that and listen to them while I'm driving. I actually shut off my XM radio subscription. I had an XM radio subscription for like 4 years. I hardly ever used it. And I finally, just a couple of months ago, was like, why am I paying $30 a month for this subscription that I never use? And not only did I not use it, one of the biggest reasons that I didn't use it was because of how many interruptions there were. It was constantly cutting out. I was constantly losing reception, even though I have an external satellite thing on my mirror outside. I don't just have one of those satellite receivers sitting on my dash. I have one mounted, let me go show it to you, on my mirror. And I still can't maintain reception. If I turn in the road or like anything, I'll just lose reception. And there are times when I'll lose reception for like 30 or 40 seconds. Right there it is, on my passenger mirror on the top of it. So it was incredibly poor service. And then the channels just played just crap over and over. And XM Radio has started playing a whole bunch of advertisements recently. One of the reasons I used to like satellite radio is there was no advertisements. The only thing that they would do was they're required by the FCC to do like a station identification every 30 minutes or so. So like every 30 minutes in between songs, they'd be like, XM Radio, and then they go back to playing music. Now, they have advertisements in between almost every song where they're advertising either their own stuff or somebody else's stuff. A lot of the times they're doing their own advertisements, just advertising their own channels and stuff like that. But I can't stand that business model. If I'm paying a fee, a subscription for a service, I should not also be watching or listening to advertisements on top of that. That's just greedy. If you want to provide the service for free to me, then yeah, I'll support it through ad revenue. But I'm not going to do both. So yeah, I eventually just shut off my XM radio subscription. And My internet is much more stable than the satellite reception from XM radio was. I have hardly any disruptions watching, or not watching, but listening to YouTube videos while I'm driving. And I have a song playlist that I'll turn on while I'm driving, so I don't have to listen to the, I like a lot of 80s music, and the XM satellite, their 80s channel, most of the time they were just playing like really obscure 80s songs. And I'm sitting there thinking, you have the entire decade of the 80s to choose from, and you're choosing songs that no one listens to because they suck, because you want to be edgy. You're like, yeah, I know about this song that nobody else knows about. Well, the reason nobody else knows about that song is because it sucks. It failed miserably in the 80s. That's the reason we don't know about it in 2020. I don't want to hear it. You have thousands of other songs to choose from. Play one of them. But no, there are some of the DJs, or whatever they call themselves, VJs or SJs, satellite DJs or whatever. They think they're edgy and cool playing obscure crap music. So yeah, if you're sitting here listening to this while you're cruising down the road, I suspect those are the only people left in, are the people that are just rolling down the road. And hopefully you're in chill mode. Hopefully you're not out there doing 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, constantly passing people, having to constantly slam on your brakes and slow down because of slower traffic pulling out in front of you. Hopefully you're just cruising at a nice speed of about 70. I travel at 65. I like 65, but I will admit 70 is probably the perfect cruising speed on a truck, because that's the speed at which you're passing and getting passed by the fewest number of people. You're moving most closely with the flow of traffic at about 70. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, just cruising down the road, hopefully you're in that chill mode, that just nice flow where you're just cruising down the road at probably about 70 and just enjoying the ride. That's the way I like to drive, is chill mode. Back when I was young, when I got my license 20 years ago, I was really good. Don't get me wrong. I could drive the truck really well. I was better at backing then than I am now. But I was impatient. I was in a 65 mile per hour governed truck, and I was one of those punk kids that was just driving at the governor all the time. I was taking turns too fast. I was speeding through small towns, all that crap. I wasn't as bad as some of these people out here. I don't want to, I wasn't one of these absolute lunatics, but I wasn't the calm, chill driver that I am today. And it is so much more relaxing to drive now than it was 20 years ago. Whenever you get into that chill mode, where you're not trying to race everybody, you're just looking at it as a marathon, not a sprint. It allows you to severely reduce your stress. When you're out there trying to race everybody and you're running with the pack, oh my goodness, that is so incredibly stressful. But I think I need to get something to drink. Like, I've run out of milk. I'm getting low on soda. And the jugs of water, I drank one of my jugs of water, but I had 2 other gallon jugs of water that I brought with me, and they've been in the truck for like a year. and they just don't taste right. I drink 2 or 3 cups out of one of the jugs, and it doesn't taste real bad, but it has this weird kind of flavor to it. I don't know how to describe it. It's not a stale flavor. It's more like a, I don't know, like a moldy type flavor or something like that. And it's been like a week since I drank that, so I didn't get sick, but I don't really want to continue drinking that. So I think I'm going to buy a gallon or 2 of milk and maybe swing into Wendy's and see what offers they have. Normally I don't eat fast food because it's so expensive, but with this Wendy's app, I can get some pretty good deals. And I've been eating at Wendy's almost every day since I've been here because I'm able to get like an entire meal for $4 or $5 because of the offers on their app. But yesterday, the offer that they had on their app was buy one, get one free for what they called covered fries. It's basically fries that they dump cheese and either chili or bacon on top of. So that's what I had to eat yesterday. And within 5 minutes of eating one of those fries, I had to run to the bathroom. I'm not going to go into detail, but it wasn't pretty. So I don't think I'm going to touch their covered fries again, which is really weird because I had covered fries 3 or 4 days ago and I didn't have a problem. But last night, it just, I don't know what the deal was. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up and figure out what I'm gonna eat today because I've been up since about 6 a.m. and it's now 4 p.m. I haven't eaten anything today, and all I've had to drink was 1 soda all day long. I don't even think I finished that soda. I think I only drank half of it. So I think I'm gonna go in there and figure out what's going on with that. And I'm getting almost no load alerts. And now we're at the end of the day, Friday. We got the weekend coming up. I'm not a big sports ball person. I used to be a big sports ball person back when I played sports in high school. But once I got out of high school, I lost almost all interest in sports until I moved to Reno, Nevada. And when I was in Reno, Nevada, I'm going to give out some other personal information about me. And the only reason I'm giving out this personal information is because anyone that's listening at this moment is only one of my longtime old school subscribers. The chill, cool people that I make these videos for. I don't like divulging personal information about me in these videos. But here goes. Here's some other personal information. 20 years ago, whenever I moved to Reno, Nevada, I worked for the Department of Homeland Security. I worked for the TSA whenever they were first created. We were initially under the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, but then after about 6 months or a year being under the FAA, they moved us under the DHS, Department of Homeland Security. So I was there when the TSA was very first created, and I worked there for the first couple of years that they existed. So while I was there living in Reno, working for the TSA, airport screener at Reno Tahoe International Airport, one of the things that we would do at work is sports gambling, sports betting. Now, what most people around the country do at their job with sports betting is they'll just do these little pools at work. You know, everybody will chip in a couple of dollars and they'll pick, you know, sports games. Well, that's not what we did because we lived in a town where gambling was legal. So what we would all do is we would all go down and we would buy tickets at the casino. I forget exactly what the ticket was, but there was an NFL ticket and there was an NCAA ticket. There might have been more than that, but we would typically buy, the NFL ticket was probably the most popular one, but we would just go down and buy those tickets, and you basically bet on every single game with the over-under. And you only had to bet like $1 or $2, and the payout was like 50,000 to 1. It was huge payout because it was nearly impossible to get every game right. And then we would bring our tickets with us to work, and we would all debate and talk about them and see who was right and who was wrong. So that got me interested in following sports. So the only times I've ever been interested in following sports was, one, when I participated in sports in school, and two, whenever I was gambling on sports. I don't do either of those anymore, so I've really lost almost all of my interest in sports. I've tried several times to watch sports, and I just can't get invested in it like I used to. Especially with free agency. Players move. Free agency has even gotten bad in college. Like, I stopped watching professional sports because of free agency, and now you have college players switching colleges every year. It's like you're playing for the rival now. Like, how can I be a fan of a team when I thought there was an accident, but it looks like there was just a red pickup truck that was peeling out, accelerating too fast. But yeah, it's hard to be a fan of a team, and I think in order to enjoy sports, you really have to have a dog in the race. You have to have a team that you're cheering for, somebody that you want to win. You have to have stakes in the game. And it's really hard for me to do that with free agency and transfer portal and all that stuff. But with all of that being said, I think the college football playoffs start tomorrow. Do they start tomorrow? I think they do. We had the conference championships last week, which I didn't watch a single one. I think I might try to watch the college football playoffs. That's normally the only sports that I watch, is like college football playoffs and Super Bowl. That's pretty much all I watch. And even then, I'll usually just watch a couple of minutes of a game and get bored and start doing something else. But I do not have any kind of TV subscription to be able to watch them legally. And I am not going to pay for a TV subscription to be able to watch them. The only subscriptions that I have right now for any kind of broadcast stuff is HBO Max. And I don't pay a monthly subscription for that. Whenever I signed up for my AT&T internet at home, there was some promotion where you got HBO Max for free. And I don't think they offer that promotion anymore, but I still have HBO Max for free. I've had it for, I don't know how long, 5 or 6 years. And I'm probably going to have HBO Max for free until I shut off my my internet at my house. And there's no way that I would pay a subscription fee for HBO Max. It just doesn't have enough content on it. But I have it for free. but none of the games are being broadcast on HBO Max that I'm aware of. I mainly watch movies on YouTube. YouTube Movies has tons of free movies. Also, Amazon Prime has a bunch of free movies. So I don't see the need to really pay for a subscription to watch movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And I'm not going to pay $80, $90, $100 a month just to watch the college football playoffs for a couple of minutes. But there are a bunch of people that pirate that stuff on YouTube. Like last weekend, they had the pretty much every conference championship game was illegally broadcast on YouTube. I tried watching one of the games. I didn't even know that the conference championship games were happening last weekend until they were almost over. And the game that was playing whenever I realized they were on was SMU versus Clemson, I think. And I watched about 5 minutes of that game and got bored and turned it off. But that one was streaming live on YouTube illegally. So maybe I'll be able to watch the college football playoffs tomorrow illegally on YouTube. So I'll try and watch them. The idea of the 12-team playoff sounds really amazing to me, because I actually think they should extend the 12-team playoff, because what they did whenever they created the BCS National Championship game is they basically made all of the bowl games worthless. And it only took a year or two for universities to basically stop participating in bowl games because they were meaningless exhibition games. Prior to the BCS National Championship game, every single bowl game mattered. Bowl season was amazing. The younger generation that did not experience college football prior to the BCS creation, they don't know how awesome December was for college football. Oh my goodness, it was so awesome. I tried to watch every bowl game I could. Why did every bowl game count back then, and why are bowl games meaningless now? Well, back then, the national champion was voted on after all of the bowl games ended. So, let's say that you had the top two teams were Texas and Oklahoma. They were number 1 and 2. They were both undefeated. And then, that's probably not a good... Let's use teams in two different conferences. Let's use Texas and Florida. Let's say Texas and Florida were number 1 and 2. Every single bowl game mattered because of strength of schedule. So, how much you dominated your opponent affected your ranking. Also, how well your opponents played, how well they played against, their schedule. So, your strength of schedule, your opponent's strength of schedule, your conference's strength. Like, you wanted everyone in your conference to win every single one of their bowl games to increase your conference's strength of schedule. So, like, every single bowl game mattered. Even the trivial little games of, the 5-5 or 6-6 teams, the teams that just barely squeaked in to the bowls, even those games mattered. But whenever they implemented the BCS system, the only people that had a chance to win the national championship were people that were selected into the BCS system. And the BCS invites or the people selected into BCS happened at the end of the regular season after the conference championship games, which made all of the bowl games, which were not BCS bowl games, just exhibition games that were absolutely meaningless. So them going to a 12-team playoff is going to allow them to add more of the bowl games into meaningful end-of-season games. I actually think they should go up to a much bigger tournament so that they could encapsulate basically the entire bowl system into an end-of-season meaningful playoff system. So, have it in, brackets where, like, the top teams, they only play a few games. Like, if you barely squeak into the playoffs, then you're going to have to fight your way and you're going to have to play the most games. So there'll be like 3 tiers of playoffs. Like right now we have 2 tiers of playoffs. You have the conference champions who get a first round bye, and then you have everybody else that has to play an extra round. So we could extend that to a 3rd tier or a 4th tier. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on it. I would like to see the month of December and all of the bowl games that all of these smaller schools fought their ass off to get into. I would like for all those games to have meaning. Like, it's still a really big... It's still a really... I don't know if you could hear that. That was a really loud car. Probably a Hellcat. It's still a really big accomplishment for a lot of these smaller schools to even become bowl eligible. Like, one of the stories that I followed that I was so excited about was New Mexico State University. Or was it the University of New Mexico? I'm pretty sure it was New Mexico State University. Became bowl eligible for the first time ever. I forget how many years ago this was, like 5 years ago or so. The first time ever they became bowl eligible. And oh my God, it made me like so excited and so happy to see how excited and happy they were to have like a 7-7 season. Like, that was a huge accomplishment for them to become bowl eligible. And I was like, I think I was more excited with that than I was for the person that won the national championship. And then there was a bunch of drama after that on whether or not they would actually get invited to a bowl game. Because you can be bowl eligible and not get invited to a bowl. There's a limited number of bowls. So they ended up getting invited to a bowl. Like, that was so awesome. I can't even remember whether or not they won the bowl game. But those are the types of things that I like to follow sports for, are those, accomplishments. People overcoming adversity type things. You don't see a lot of that in sports anymore. Now it's just about whoever's got the most money. It's all about money. The business side's taken over. Free agencies and transfer portals and all that stuff. But I do still enjoy hearing about the New Mexico states in the world. But I better end this before it gets too ridiculously long. I hope you're having a great week. And it looks like I'm going to be sitting through the weekend. I am trying to find a load to get home on. I might get lucky and maybe they'll throw up a load over the weekend that I'll snag. But we'll just have to wait and see. Do I regret not taking that Bartlesville load? No, not really. that it still kind of upsets me to think about the agent just trying to screw me over on that. But that's how the agents get. They don't want to upset their customers, that they have a big, like, that's probably their primary income is that one customer, and they don't want to do anything to upset that customer. So on that particular load, that customer had a whole bunch of extra stuff that they wanted, and that agent was not charging the customer for any of that extra stuff. They were doing a favor for that customer, and they just expected me, the driver, to also do a favor for that customer and do all that extra work for free. That's upsetting. But anyway, there are tons of gnats or mosquitoes. I don't know what it is. It just, when the sun went down, they just popped out of nowhere. So I'm gonna go and get something to drink and something to eat, and hopefully not fall climbing up this mountain. But I hope you have a great weekend, and if you watch the sports ball, then I hope you enjoy watching sports ball this weekend. I don't even know if it's happening this weekend or if it's next weekend, but have a good one. Bye.